Hello and welcome to Witching Hours. I am your host, the resident crone, Witch Hazel, otherwise known as Regina. And I am so delighted this evening to welcome Zoe, and I should have asked you how to pronounce your name. It's Mantarakis.
Oh, yes, that's it.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much for joining me this evening.
Hi, it's my pleasure.
And as way as introduction, I just want to say that Zoe teaches yoga as a yoga practitioner, has taught in Austin, I believe you said, for over 17 years. And on my own, I did a little researching and I found that Austin Fit magazine found you to be the best yoga teacher in Austin. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about that just before we start the program.
Oh, Regina, thank you for having me. It's such an honor to be here. Yeah, I guess when you do something long enough and you love it and you're as passionate about it as I am, I think that just comes through. And I feel like people are attracted to that because of my enthusiasm. I just love what I do.
You must be pretty good at it too, because I'll tell you, I think people's first experience with yoga can affect the way they look at it for the rest of their lives. And I think I had my first class in college and I didn't understand it. I didn't get it. I'm much older than you are. So I mean, the teacher may have been fine, but I didn't understand what it was really offering to me. So what do you think and this is a hard question, what do you think it is in your teaching that really resonates with your students so that they come back again and again and actually vote you to be the best?
That is so true. Your first exposure makes such a difference in yoga and in anything, right?
Yeah.
I think my approach, I believe yoga is for every body. There's no physical body that yoga won't work for. And I'm very welcoming for absolute beginners, or if you have an injury, or if you fit any certain demographic, if you're an older person or a heavier person or a stiff person or an athlete. I've taught all kinds of bodies, and I think that puts people at ease, and that's a good place to start, right?
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, a lot of the questions have to do with the pandemic and how it's affecting people right now. But before, we didn't mention that you are an assistant professor of, am I pronouncing sorry,
Kinesiology.
Thank you, at UT Austin. And could you tell us a little bit about the different hats that you wear in that department?
Yeah, it's actually really exciting. I've been a professor at UT now for 2 years. I'm actually their first ever assistant professor of yoga practice. We've never had that position before. So that's another supreme honor for me to step into this role. And then I'm also a lead yoga teacher at the Fit Institute of Texas, which is on campus. And that's the capacity where I teach yoga that's open to the public. So I'm teaching for undergrads as a professor, but then I teach to the public through the Fit Institute of Texas.
And so for our viewers who are so interested in this, but they hear UT Austin, they assume that they have to be either students or connected somehow to the university. What exactly do you offer to the general public?
Yeah, isn't that exciting? You don't have to be a student or a faculty member. So through the Fit Institute right now, because of the way things are with Corona and all that, we offer virtual classes, live streaming online that you can log into at a certain time every week and participate. But I also have this huge library of recorded content that you can subscribe to through the Fit Institute. And then you've just got all these videos at your fingertips that you can watch whenever you want.
Now that's fantastic. And I think we may have to parcel that out throughout this program because I want to get back to the pandemic. So many people are feeling levels of fear and worry and anxiety that, at least to the extent that they never felt before. How would you suggest that yoga could be a modality, even for people who've never tried it before, to deal with some of these anxieties?
Absolutely. Yoga remains relevant. It's an ancient healing modality that uses stretching. That's what most people think of as the yoga poses. But a big part of yoga is also breathing, meditating, what I call mind control, learning to control your mind so that it doesn't run away with you, and mindfulness. And that's never been more relevant. You know, these are thousands of years old techniques that are just as relevant today.
And this is something that you can do. How much space do you need? Say if you live in a small apartment and you may have a laptop or just a phone, how much space do you need to be able to get the full benefits of a yoga practice?
Yoga is a really broad term when I use it. So it doesn't even have to include poses at all. It could just be a mindfulness practice. You could do yoga anywhere at any time. It could involve taking one deep breath, right? So you don't need anything at all to do yoga. If you want to do the full splits, you might need a little bit of room. But
for me, a lot of time.
That's not necessary to begin to feel the full effects and the potential for yoga to heal.
So if someone wanted to test out the waters a little bit, I mean, you say breathing. What I have found myself, I used to belong to a gym, and during the pandemic, I can't get access to it. I live in a fairly small apartment. So what would be like, and I'm not getting as much regular exercise as I should, I know that. What do you think is the minimum amount of some kind of exercise with some movement involved that people should get each week?
I mean, I read one study that for every hour we're sitting, we need to get up a minimum of 4 minutes and be in action, be moving, you know, be not sitting, stand up, jump up, do some jumping jacks, do some in yoga, what we call sun salutes. I think that would be a bare minimum, 4 minutes per hour of sitting.
And you know, that doesn't sound like much. I mean, it isn't much, but I can promise you that there are many that are not getting that even.
Isn't that the darndest?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I would even pare it down even further than that. If you're not going to get up, if you're not going to do an actual yoga stretch or sprint around the block for 4 minutes, take that deep breath. They've actually discovered that there's a certain way of breathing, and I can demonstrate it and show you how, that if you even just do 3 to 5 of this type of breathing, it can trigger your parasympathetic nervous system, which is the body's relaxation response.
Would you share that with us now? Because I'll tell you, that will be a start for so many. And if they're just sitting here watching this, if they can breathe along with you, that they should be able to feel the difference immediately.
Exactly. So the first thing before I even start to breathe is I address how I'm sitting. So I'm in a chair right now, but I'm going to scoot my chair back and I'm going to sit to the front edge of my chair. Okay. And you can even tell in the video that my posture has changed.
Yes, it's better.
Right? So if we just did this for 4 minutes every hour and, you know, broke up the slouching. So instead of stooping over, I've rolled my shoulders back. I'm not leaning on my chair back. I'm sitting upright. So I'm using my core muscles and my spine. And now I'm going to commence the breathing. So I'm going to breathe in through my nose slowly. And then when I blow out, I'm blowing through the lips, like I was blowing, you know, on my hand or blowing a feather or something. So 3 to 5 of those breaths, just in through the nose and blowing so soft and slow. Let's do 2 more to have the full effect of those 3 total breaths. Make it last really slow. 1 more time, in through the nose and out through the lips slowly.
Well, I felt a difference right then. I do feel more relaxed. I feel almost a little bit lightheaded. Definitely more relaxed. I felt when I was breathing in, I felt my shoulders going up a bit. Do we try to keep them down or just? Like
you can let your body move with the breath. Yeah, your shoulders might move, your belly might move. It's okay to adjust your posture. Absolutely. In the ancient language of yoga, it's Sanskrit, the word for breath is the same word for energy, prana.
Oh,
So
prana.
when you say you felt lightheaded, that's because when we're breathing, we're actually moving energy through our body. And so
Mm.
it's not unusual to feel tingly or lightheaded, or that doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It means like, oh, there's an energetic shift that's occurring with
It
your
needed to
change.
happen.
Yeah, you can
Yeah,
feel it. Yeah.
that's great. And what is the reason for breathing in through your nose, but breathing out through your mouth?
So that isn't a kind of breath that you would use. Excuse me, I'm doing laundry. Could you hear my buzzer?
No,
I don't know if you
yeah.
heard that. So that isn't the kind of breath you would typically do during yoga poses. When we're doing yoga poses, we would just breathe in and out through the nose. The
Mhm.
breathing out through the lips is a specific regulatory breath that helps to stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system for relaxation.
Well, I'm glad you know that because I just had the benefit of it, but I'm going to have to go back and study that a little bit. Thank you for the explanation. And so it's interesting. So there are different forms of breathing, different ways of breathing when you're doing a yoga practice, and during the asana, the postures, that it may be different, depending upon what the goal is in that particular moment.
Absolutely.
And
There's
now
even,
getting back to the
yeah, go ahead.
pandemic, and of course you're with UT Austin, how have you noticed a difference in, let's start with the students during the pandemic. Are there some symptoms or changes in what you see as normal behavior or reaction that you've been able to identify in college-age students?
Absolutely. I've been teaching virtually now. We finished out the spring semester virtual. I taught summer semester completely virtual, and now fall semester is virtual. So it's been a long several months here. Um, Students are so grateful, as we all are, for any type of real authentic connection that we can get, especially connections that feel safe, and that don't compromise, our integrity for health and security during these times. And so offering online yoga is such a gift that students are really vocal about, that they're so grateful for this class. Often they'll say that it's the highlight of their day or the semester. Yeah.
What a wonderful offering. And that you were aware of this and that UT Austin was aware of this to be able to provide this. Do you find, are there any other modalities, either within yoga itself or other, supporting kind of modalities that you have also found useful? I'm thinking of dietary changes. Thinking of myself, I have not been eating that well for the past 9 months. Been kind of holiday eating. I think of comfort food, which is not necessarily the healthiest way of eating. But are you able to offer the students and anyone that you may come into contact with suggestions about how they themselves can actually help in their own life?
Absolutely. I do talk about all of those things. An issue that's really close to my heart and that I think is really related to yoga is something that I call self-betrayal. Self-betrayal is when we know what we should do and we don't do it. We don't hold ourselves accountable.
Yeah.
And yoga, actually, when we go beyond just the poses or even beyond the breathing, its underpinnings are a way of life. And that includes a level of mindfulness that helps you check in with yourself to first discern what you need, and then to hold yourself accountable and do what you need. And so, yeah, that one thing that I do in my classes is we make small promises to ourselves, and then we keep them. And it's a weekly challenge. And so it could be something as simple as, I'm going to hydrate. Inside of this is not coffee, it's not caffeine, it's water. And I make a promise to myself that I'm going to hydrate, and then I do it.
Perfect
Then I do
example.
it. And that builds confidence in myself that now I'm the kind of person that hydrates. I'm not the kind of person that knows I should hydrate, but really I drink Coca-Cola. And that's a game changer, right?
That's a major game changer. And that's a story. I mean, one of my big things is high fructose corn syrup. And I think it was a couple of years ago. You mentioned Coke. I tasted one of the, the bottled kind that comes from Mexico. It was so delicious. And I know sugar is not really good for us either, but talk about a game changer. The high fructose corn syrup that you find in carbonated sodas. You can actually feel, if you're not used to it and you drink that, you feel ill. But it is, I mean, I don't know if they're addictive, but there's so much of that out there. And sometimes it's hard to switch to water. I found in my own life, the naturally sparkling Pellegrino water that comes in the glass bottles from Italy, that made it a lot easier. I guess I like carbonation, but it's delicious water, and it somehow, maybe it's a step, maybe it's, eventually to get plain water out of a, filter, maybe filtered water. But the Pellegrino is a good step in the meantime.
Absolutely. Herbal tea counts as a hydration. So you can drink various kind of fruity or herbal teas. When you start drinking caffeinated tea or caffeinated drinks, that's where it kind of detracts from the hydration. But bubbly water and fizzy water and LaCroix and all that, that still hydrates you. That's a great
Oh,
fizzy.
that's good. And what about green tea? I mean, maybe not all day long, but once in a while.
Yeah, it has its benefits. That's a caffeinated tea, but it still
Right.
has many benefits in and of itself with the antioxidants and all of that too.
Right. Right. And so
Yeah,
actually from what, I wanted to get back to what you said about the little promises that you all make during class, which I think is such a great idea. And that's something we could all do on our own. First thing in the morning, you write a little journal or just note down promises to make to yourself. And I guess taking that one step further, is there an optimum time of day to practice some yoga postures?
Anytime you can do them. I'm not going to say one, because if I say morning, then you'll go, well, it's not morning anymore. I guess I'll do it tomorrow. Do them anytime.
Maybe in addition to everything, I'm just thinking it's a good way to start the day.
It's a great way to start the day.
I knew I was going to be speaking to you this morning, so I thought, okay, I've been very lax recently, but I did my salute to the sun, which I'm sure I do a bad version. But when I do the salute to the sun, I think there are 13 steps to it, the way that I do it anyway. And it just revitalizes every part of me. And I notice when I finish, I do it a couple of times, and I try to be aware of my breathing as I'm doing it. I just feel I started the day off right when I start that way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Doing yoga in the morning is such a great time to do it. Doing it in the evening is awesome too. And that can be part of a healthy sleep hygiene routine. If you're struggling with anxiety or broken sleep, insomnia, that type of stuff, restlessness, doing yoga in the evening to help you wind down could be equally beneficial. And that might look different, right? A sun salute is like a peppy kind of a yoga move where you would do that in the morning. At night, you could do a few laying down stretches and some twists, or a pigeon pose or a child's pose, something more relaxing.
And we've heard that insomnia is one of the main symptoms that people complain of during this pandemic. And so I think, do you have any other suggestions at the end of the day? Is there an optimal time to stop using media or electronics, say, or you said some relaxing poses, and I suppose deep breathing as well?
Absolutely. All of those can be part of what we call a sleep hygiene routine. So you could dim the lights, turn your screen off. You could light a scented candle or some incense about an hour before bed. That's going to trigger your body's sense memory, like, oh, this is bedtime, right? You could take a hot shower or a warm bath, drink a cup of warm milk or warm tea. You could create a whole routine around bedtime to help you get ready. But the pose that I would recommend the most it's called Shavasana. For those of you guys familiar with yoga, that's the pose we do at the end of yoga class. But that could be the way you start sleep. You could lay in bed, lay on your back, just lay down flat in bed on your back, and work yourself through some mental relaxation. Like, now I'm relaxing my arm. Now I'm relaxing my leg. Go through your whole body like you would at the end of a yoga class. And that could be an entry into sleep.
And what do you do if you're trying to do this and some thoughts keep coming in, things that something you didn't finish today, something you have to do first thing tomorrow morning. What happens when these like stressful thoughts arise?
Yeah, and that's okay. We have a mind that is made to think, and we don't want it to stop thinking. That's a beautiful thing of being a human, is having this amazing thinking mind. So you can kind of bless your mind or thank your mind. Thanks for remembering that, mind. I'm going to set that aside because I'm relaxing my arm right now. And now I'm going to relax my leg. And you just kind of, the way you would kind of school a toddler. Oh, yes, thank you for bringing that up, but we're doing this now, right?
Speaking of which, one problem or concern that I've heard from some people, actually my son's age, who are married with very small children, and their children are home much more than they were, and it's added a degree of stress in the family life. Are there some poses, maybe yoga, that parents could teach their children? Things could be done together as a family in a gentle kind of way, almost like play.
Absolutely. I'm a single mother. I have 3 children at home with me.
Oh my goodness.
So I know a thing or two about this. Yeah, there's lots of ways. One is through modeling. So when I get irritable, or there's a kind of a deadline that I need to meet, or something is like rousing me up, that I can verbalize and model to my toddler or even to my teenagers and say, I'm going to step away for a minute and take 3 of those breaths. I'll be right back and we'll continue this in a moment, so I can model it that way. But we also, like I do for my students, and I have my challenges for my classes, I'll do challenges with my kids. I'm like, come on, let's do horse stance. And you squat down and you feel your thighs burning, and we all just stand around and hoot and holler at each other. We set the timer. We did it for 5 minutes. Your thighs are burning. And it's like, okay, go back to what you were doing. Forget it. Now go play.
Yeah, it kind of takes your mind off whatever was interfering before. That's amazing. For someone who has 3 children at home, a single mom, you are a role model. You seem so relaxed and calm. So I guess this yoga thing probably works.
That's the place I'm teaching from. Is I'm teaching what has worked for me is what I want to share.
Oh,
Exactly.
we only have a couple of minutes. I could do this for about 3 hours. I've brought up a number of concerns that I've heard from others. Are there any things that you've heard, any symptoms that have arisen during the pandemic that your students or friends may have mentioned to you that you think we should address and be aware of?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to bring up that I'm also familiar with issues that have been kind of a bigger spotlight during pandemic, but that are always issues and that don't get spoken a lot, are like meal uncertainty, financial uncertainty, that there are many families that don't know where their next meal or their next paycheck are coming from.
Yeah.
And couples that are living in close quarters are having higher instances of domestic violence,
Yes.
domestic abuse. And these issues are all really close to my heart. And I think that when we begin a yoga practice, it can address these things by at least acknowledging what we're feeling. And from there,
it's so important. And these things you've just mentioned, a lot of these things are under the general radar. These are not headline pieces that we're reading about. It's beginning to work its way into the media now because, they've noticed that the food lines or the food banks, the lines are so long and it's breaking all kind of precedent. At my local church, we have a number of groups that do a lot of volunteering. Well, we can't do it like face-to-face anymore. And so because of social distancing, it doesn't mean that the needs are going away. And you mentioned domestic violence, which is very much on the rise. And, where do we hear about this? So as you say, in yoga class, it's one place to bring it up. And maybe at the end of this show, I'll post some of the hotline numbers that Austin is great for having a lot of support, both mental health support and just in general, But I don't know if
Absolutely.
you're
I'd be
aware.
so grateful if you did that and posted that help is out there. And the first
Yes.
thing we have to do is ask for the help because it is out there. Thank you so much for offering to post those numbers.
Oh, absolutely. But thank you for bringing this up because, and this is just one more reason, I guess, to go to your online yoga classes, that you're looking at a whole life, and there are going to be problems throughout the whole life that are not necessarily immediately addressed in our daily lives because we're all so isolated right now. So to feel that there is somewhere where this can be discussed or brought up or that's being considered. Thank you for offering that to the community. I think there are a lot of desperate people right now. And if they see a show like this, they may have never considered yoga before. They may see it as, something frivolous almost. But if they see it as a lifeline, which I think it is, it can be for a lot of people, if this is the one step that gets someone to try it out, and in some ways it's less intimidating to try out a class like this online in the privacy of your own home than going to a class where you feel everyone's going to be better than you are and the teacher will, probably lose patience or something.
Absolutely. That's actually, I didn't get to say it, but that's a side effect of the online classes for undergrads is they can turn their screens off. And so nobody's looking at them do yoga, not even me. And there's a liberation in that.
So,
Yeah, and yoga gives you that moment where you're just being in your body. You're being human again. You're not being virtual. The platform might be virtual that you're hearing my transmission from, but the experience is you in your flesh, just having one breath or one pose.
and could you
My
mention once
pleasure.
more, yeah, I think we do have to go. Could you mention once more the public offerings that are available through UT Austin?
Yes, it's through the Fit Institute of Texas. That's where you can find me, and it's open to the public. There's a library of recorded content and online streaming yoga classes.
Wow, thank you so much. I will also post that at the very end of this. Thank you so much for being my guest. I don't know, I'll keep this running for a little bit, but let me just sign off for now. So I thank all of my viewing audience for visiting us today. I feel so grateful to Zoe for sharing some of what she does in her yoga classes, and how lucky we are in Austin that this is a resource that we can all take advantage of. But I'm Regina, this is the crone, Witch Hazel of Witching Hours. Thank you for sitting with us for a spell.